In this lesson, we're going to discuss the advantages of the command line. Over here we have property editor and command line. I'm going to draw a couple of items here. I'm going to draw a line, a 2-point line. I'm going to draw it from here up to here using the grid as the snap tool. I'm also going to draw a circle. I'm going to use center with the radius, and I'll snap it. Center be here, radius be that much right there. So now we have two entities placed on the drawing area. Let's assume that I want to add a third entity, another circle point with a radius. And normally what I would do is snap it to something. I'd snap it to either the end of one of these pre-existing objects or the center of one of these pre-existing entities. I have a lot of trouble saying entity instead of object. Entity is a proper term because it can be a cluster of several different pieces. So an entity is the right way to name this process. Or we can have the circle center point start relative to one of the grid points. But let's say for the sake of argument that we don't have any entity to reference on. We have no grid point that falls where we need the center of the circle to be. So we're going to have to place the center of the circle without a snap condition. And once we do that, we can freehand the entity, the center of the circle, any place you want to. But you notice down here, if you look at your XY coordinates down here, it's very difficult to get to an exact number just by moving your mouse around. It's almost impossible. So in this case, what we have to do is use the command line. I've already selected a tool, which was the circle with the center point and a radius. And the command line already knows that because he's waiting for the center point coordinates. So to activate the command line, I got to hit the space bar. And that places focus in this little text box here of the command line. And what focus means is that anything I type on the keyboard will go into this text box. We assume focus all the time in many situations in Windows programs. But here we have to be more concerned about it. So once I get the flashing I-beam, I know I'm in focus, I can type. So I'm going to type in where I want the center of that circle to go. And we'll say that it's 12.336 on the x-axis. And we'll say it's 13.667 on the y-axis. And hit the enter key. Notice it placed the beginning of our circle right here, the center point I should say. So that center point has a very specific location, a very precise location. And now we can notice that the command line knows that the next thing we need is the radius. It's asking for the radius. So I can either take the mouse and make the radius. I can freehand the mouse. I can now snap the mouse to something else to set the radius in increments. Or I can snap to the ends of this line to set the radius. But if we want something that doesn't meet any of the previous drawn entities or the grid pattern, then we're going to have to type in the radius. Let's make it 4.667 units, which are inches in this case, and hit enter. Now we've placed the circle. Notice it's placed the circle exactly where we want it, exactly at that location, and an exact radius we want. And now it's waiting for another circle, center of another circle. So by hitting the escape key, we'll exit that command. Now we're back to the drawing area. And what we have to do is go back here and reselect the next tool we want to use. Next, let's place a line using the command line. We'll come up here and we'll select, if we go to select something like the line, notice if I select this line here, there's a LI. LI is a two-letter command. It says line from 2 points, LI. So LI is a way to tell the command line what tool we want to select without having to come over here and click on it. So we're going to come down here, hit the space bar to obtain focus again. We'll type LI, enter. Now it knows there's a first point for a line. So we'll make it 12, 12. And it knows there's a next point for the line. Notice where the first point is right now. So right there, that's 12, 12. So it's looking for the next point for the line. We can freehand with the mouse, which isn't very accurate. Like we said down here, it's very hard to get it where you want it. Or we simply type in the numbers. Over here, we'll make 25. Notice I can leave my mouse up there. 25.447 for the X value. And 24.663 for the Y value. So now we place that line using the command line. We didn't need the mouse at all because we used the LI command for a line, and we put in the coordinates all with the command line. Let's take a look at this line we just drew for a second with the property editor. If I click on the property editor and I go back to my no tools selected, now I can select the line. Notice the line started here and it ended up there. I know that because that's where the little relative reference point is. That's the last thing that was done. So I know this is the start of the line. It says the start of the line is 12, 12, and that's what it is. It says the end of the line is 25.447, Y 24663, and that's this location right here. What I want to talk about this line is there's another way of looking at that line. They call it geometry. The geometry is actually the polar coordinates of that line. I should say the polar coordinate of the shape of the line, but not necessarily where the line is located. So the line is 18.470879 inches long, and the angle is 43.28 degrees. So how's that angle measured? Well, if we come over here and we look, we know that the x-axis is a reference for angles. So if we start the x-axis and go up 43.28 degrees, that's the angle of this line. So the angle is always referenced from the start point x-axis on the right-hand side, and the angle rotates counterclockwise up to where the line angle is. That tells us the angle of the line. I just want to point that out so that you'll understand that concept in future references. So a quick summary here. We placed a circle using the mouse to select the circle tool. Then we use the command line to determine the location, the precise location of the circle. Then we used a two-letter command to tell the command line that we want to draw a line, and we use the command line to determine the two endpoints of the line. So that's how we do those things. Now let's draw an arc using the command line. In order to draw an arc with the command line, we have to know the two-letter command for the arc. So we click up here on our tools. Here's the arc tool listing. We're going to use this one, AR, center point angles. So it's a center point and two angles. Plus there's a radius too. So AR is a command. So we're going to come down here. We're going to hit the space bar to go into command mode. We're going to type AR. Now once we typed AR, it knows that, notice up here, it tells you what you selected. So the command line selected that. The mouse did not select it. The command line selected the tool, and it knows the tool needs a center as the first thing it needs. So let's put the center right around here someplace. Look down here, you can see where the center is. The numbers are like 13, 17. So let's use a precise number. X being 13.667, Y being 18.337. Hit enter. Now we have the center point of our arc. Notice I can take the mouse. I use the mouse to set the radius of the arc, but that's not precise. So we're going to come down here. Focus is already down here. Even though the mouse is out here someplace, I can go ahead and type in the radius, and we'll make it 8 units, 8 inches, 8.558 inches will be the radius of that arc. So now the radius has been set. Now the start angle is the first place where we want it to start. And that is an angle. So let's say we want to start it at 33 degrees relative to the x-axis. Remember our x-axis. See, we can draw this arc with the mouse. We're setting the starting point right now. And we're going to set the starting point at, say, 33 degrees. So we still have focus down here. We type 33. Hit enter. Now that's the starting point. Now you can take the mouse and set the end point of the arc. Or we can go down here. We're still in focus. We say the end angle would be 247.5 degrees. And now we've established that arc. Notice now it says I'm ready for a new center. It's ready to do another one. So I'm going to hit escape. escape out of that command. And now we're drawing an arc without using the mouse at all, really. We only use the mouse to get the letter command name, AR, because we didn't use it enough yet to know that. Let's take the property editor, look at this item. I'm going to select this arc, property editor, and the property editor tells us the start angle, the end angle, the radius, the center area, X and Y is the center area. So all those, the property editor can tell us everything about that arc, everything about its precision. And that's how you place an arc using the command line. Next we want to draw another arc, the same type of an arc with a radius and a starting angle and ending angle. Let's say we don't know the angles, but we have XY coordinates on the drawing area where we want the angle to start and stop. So in that particular case, we can't use the command line because we don't know the angles. Can't use the AR with the command line. So instead we're going to use the mouse. We all know the problem with the mouse is we don't get precise positioning information. So there's another feature once we select this AR function with the mouse. Down here there's this little thing called coordinates, SX. And that's going to allow us to use coordinates, X and Y coordinates, to place this arc without knowing the angles. So let's make that happen. When we click on this tool, notice up here at the top we got the direction of rotation of the arc. At default is counterclockwise. We can also make it rotate clockwise. So we'll leave it default counterclockwise. Now what's a little tricky here is what are we doing? Well, these two boxes, obviously we need an XY coordinate, but what is it? Well, if you look down here for your mouse locations, it says that's the center. So that's the center of the arc. It knows we selected the arc tool. It knows that we need the center, so it's asking for the center first. So this is your information display down here telling you what to put in these boxes up here at the top. So we're going to make the center fall somewhere around here, which is what, 20 something? Yeah. We'll leave 23 and 31. So you got to click this to set that coordinate. We can also use relative values, but we're using absolutes right now. So we click this to set the center coordinates. Notice now it says, where is there a point on the arc? In other words, what's the radius of the arc? So the point on the arc will be defined in XY coordinates. Notice the arc's up here. So we're going to bring it down. We'll set the radius down here. Let's see what's that, 10, 20, 20, and 10. So it's 10x, 20y. So 10x, 20y. Notice it's showing you as we're typing what we're going to end up with. There's our 10x, 20y. Once again, we got to set that value. It's asking for a point on the arc, which means the radius. We're going to click this to set that point on the arc. We've set the radius. Now the start angle, where we want it to start, instead of using angles, we're going to use XY coordinates. Let's have it start up this area someplace. That'd be 10, 20. We'll call it 27. Y, we'll call it 8x. So we started at 8x. Tab over to 27y. 27y. And notice it's showing you, it's going to be right there. That's the angle. Even though it's an XY coordinate, it's representing an angle from the center point of this arc. So you can see the little angle line drawn in there. So we use an XY coordinate to define the angle. We can say, okay, that's the start angle. We're going to set the start angle. Now it wants the end angle. We'll make the end angle down here someplace. So let's say the end angle is right here, which is what, 10, say 13. X is 23 and 13. So we'll make X 23, 23. Notice it's drawing the arc. It's showing you what you're coming up with. X is 23. We decided to make this 14. 14. And we're going to set the end angle. So now we've done that. So now we've drawn this arc. It has a precise radius and all these other properties. So let's clear all of our tools for a second. So we can select this arc and look at it with the property editor. Notice it's got the radius here, start angle, end angle. I didn't know them. Now I know what they are. It's 194 and 270. But I was meeting some other condition on the drawing. I used the XY coordinates to meet some other condition on the drawing to set the angle of this arc. So I indirectly got the start angle and the end angle. I indirectly got the radius because I typed in an XY coordinate which reflected the amount of radius I needed. So all these they're like virtual entries to get this exact and precise arc. So that's how you use the snap tool right here, which is called the coordinate, and it's the two-letter command SX. Let's now talk about using the command line to place relative coordinates. So we're going to go up here and we're going to draw a line like we've done many times before. Snap it to the grid, run it from here up to here. Now let's say we want to place a circle. We'll right click to get out of that command. Go up here and we want to place a circle using the center and a radius. We want the circle to be offset from the end of this line, so we can't use a snap to end. So we don't want the center of the circle to start there. We want the center of the circle to start somewhere around here, all right? But we're going to use the end of the line as a reference, be our relative reference. So we'll get the space bar. It already knows that we're waiting for the center of a circle. So we're going to type in ampersand at. It's going to be offset to the left -3 units for the x value. The offset down -8 units for the y value. Relative to that last relative reference point, which is the end of the line. So I hit enter, and now I notice here's the center of our circle. And it's relative to the end of that line, but it's not at the end of the line. It's precisely relative to it. So now I go ahead and enter our point on a circle, or the radius. We'll just say 12. Hit enter. And that's what we've done now. I'm going to hit escape to kill that command. Clear my tools. We now have a circle that's relative, precisely relative to the end of that line, but it's not at the end of the line. If we look at our property editor, we can see just the geometry of the circle, radius 12 inches, diameter is 24 inches, the area, circumference, there's all kinds of information about this circle. Sometimes you need the circumference, sometimes you need the area. If you use the property editor, you can find those things and the exact center location. I don't know what that is yet. We'll get that in another lesson. So, we've drawn a circle relative to some entity that was already on the drawing by using the relative reference point with the command ampersand, or we commonly call that the at command. Let's delete that circle, and let's delete this line. Another way to delete all is saying start over, just go up here and click File, New. Starts a new page, fresh start. Let's assume for a moment that we need to draw a square, an actual square. If we click on the tools, the line tool, you notice it doesn't have squares, it only has rectangles. That's not a square. So what we're going to have to do is start with the rectangle, and let's just freehand where it starts. Let's start it out here someplace. Notice the XY coordinates down here at the bottom. We're going to start it so it's not on a grid point. It's got some weird numbers. Choose those numbers. That's where it starts. Now I want to make it a square. So how would I do that? Well, the second corner, the command line down here is looking for the second corner, right? Because he knows we're in the process of drawing a rectangle. We want the rectangle to be a square. So if I put in the same numbers, would that make a square? Let's try that. So down here we're going to type in 12, 12. If I can get focus. Okay, 12, 12. Notice that's not a rectangle because the dimensions for the starting point weren't symmetrical from the origin, therefore we can't use the same numbers down here to get a square. So how do we fix this? Well, it's a real easy fix. We come down here and we backspace, we use the ampersand sign, that makes it relative. So now our numbers will be relative to the last relative reference point, which is the first corner of the rectangle. And if we make these two numbers the same, now we will in fact end up with the square, as you can see up there. So the relative reference point can easily be used to draw a square without having to know the exact precision of the starting point of the rectangle. We can still make it a square. So that's kind of a cute use of this feature. Something else I want to point out while we're here in this subject is that we can do math in any of these things. We can have a little fun with this. We're going to say 9 plus 3 is the x value, which is still 12. We're going to say 2 times 6 is the y value, which is still 12. And you notice we do have a rectangle up here. Before I took focus away, we have a rectangle up here that's a square. And we did it using math within the x and y coordinates. You can use math in any text box in Qcad and it will automatically calculate for you. So that's a very nice feature of Qcad. So this pretty much sums up the use of the command line and text boxes to place coordinates of entities on the drawing area.